But as of today, if you don't mind, then let's just see what's new, what new thing we can show you with Easyling in 2020. So all the time when we started, in terms of technology and also our understanding of the market and everything, this is how the dashboard started to look at 2010. And why we really spent a lot of effort on it, and then it was really a hurry to get all the new features that we implemented and figured out based on your feedback. We do admit that the user experience had some things to improve. And so that's why about 2.5 years ago, we started to look into new technologies and new possibilities. And that's what take to us by 2020 to this new user experience, brand new UI, new technology, new everything. And last year, when in the masterclass, we were able to present a little bit of technology preview of that. And by 2020, we can see that most of the features, hopefully paying attention to the frequency you start using it, we have moved them all across to the dashboard 2.0 by today. So what I would like to walk you through in this upcoming approximately 1 hour is about these new features that we brought here. So our concept was to use this material design, trying to follow the simple language and consistency of this user experience, while bringing you at least the same feature set as it was available in dashboard 1. And also in a lot of situations, we were able to improve it thanks to our backend team as well, and then implemented these new features for you. So the new concept is basically, to start with, this is the project overview, where we have created these cards so that you can see at a glance what is important for the project, where to start. Now, even the previously very famous but under-documented project code is accessible straight from the project information card. And beyond the statistics, which is still based around the request and the word as of today, we have the standard gateway and crawl options and project workflow features available. And beyond that, there are these other at least 6 cards that we made available on this project information setting. So one card that we found very useful and important is this crawl information, as we call it. And basically the idea here is that make available what was the last crawl that happened to this project, and also with the crawl history, which is available by now, you can have a detailed look on the other previous crawls that happened to the system, not just the last one, certainly. The link projects can be very important, so it deserves its own card on the project overview. The target languages, where initially we thought of like 5-6 target languages maybe, but we have seen situations where 35 target languages were required. So it definitely had to be like a flexible one to handle this. The actual word count, including the repetition analysis, is also available on the project overview, and you can always get an update of what's in the database. The referred domain list is more towards the discovery phase, just to understand and spot any kind of interesting domain that might require your attention. The content timeline, which is a new feature, and we found it very useful sometimes when we had to provide support and trying to figure out what happened to a project and certainly when it happened. So it shows it from the very first one since the project created, almost all of the major steps, but still not that detailed as the audit log. So it is really focusing more around the crawl and how and when new content was ingested for the project, and also when it was exported. To get all these feedbacks, which we have also felt like Easyling is not always so easy. So that's why we did some user interviews about 2 years ago, and then try to iterate through on the most painful points and try to raise the question so that you do not always have to come to Zalan for the proper answer. So here are the wizards that we created. The very first ones are going to be the easy ones. So just create a new project now has the possibility to also start a discovery immediately after the project creation. So why this was a rather easy one, just to create a word count discovery, we have also built it into the sales tool wizard, which previously was designed so that you can simply translate a landing page of multiple projects. Now, we have heard your request that you sometimes not just want to create a single project, but multiple projects without the translation feature and the translation cost, of course. So now it is also possible with the good old sales tool wizard on the dashboard too, to immediately start a discovery with a limited number of pages without any kind of content extraction and translation. But these were the simple ones. This is the dry sales tool initiation. But what was definitely a more painful one for everyone is the crawl wizard. So initially our understanding started out like, oh, okay, let's just create a crawl of the site, extract all the content, and then we have everything. And then along all these years, we learned with you, thanks to your feedback as well, sometimes the content extraction is just prohibitively expensive. So that's how we created the discovery or dry crawl, as we sometimes call it. And that's the phase where the word count is the only relevant information that you need, along with the list of pages. So that's why we created this step-by-step crawl wizard, where at the very beginning you can just select the type of crawl you would like to run, or just use the different shortcuts that we have prepared. And then it takes you through the scope and the actual list of pages. And also what is very important, and that we learned from you, is that not all the types of pages are equally important. So that's what took us really in a very special project where it was required to run a daily crawl, but the number of pages and the number of resources and everything took about 25 hours to check for changes. And that initiated a heavy think tank process inside the organization, where we also analyzed all the data that we have in the database from this past 10 years. And while our initial strategy was to crawl everything and check not just all the HTML pages, but along with that, the JavaScript, the CSS, and the images, and everything basically. After we spent this time on it, and we analyzed a very robust but sometimes over-caring crawler engine that we have built, we basically came up with fine-tuning options and internal optimization. And basically, starting from now, we recommend these following fine-tuning options for crawling. We highly recommend that only the HTML pages should be looked for at the very beginning of the project. Because what we learned is that all the content is there, and even if we crawl and find all the JavaScript, which may or may not contain information to be translated, it anyway requires human interaction and human assistance to find and mark those translatable elements in it. And also images at the very beginning is rarely required. So based on that, and based on semantical analysis, a more careful analysis of the content, when these default options are used, it can be up to like 30% faster to crawl new sites, because you do not check these resources. And also it yielded to like about 70% fewer requests or files to be processed, of which some remote web servers must be very helpful and grateful, because we have seen situations where even we were very mild and reduced the rate of the crawler sitting on top of the Google network. We did cause some pain sometime when at the end of the day we had to reduce the intensity that we crawl the site. So this is one important thing in the crawl wizard that you will see in the upcoming new projects, and I hope you will enjoy as well the speed and the less cluttered URL list in the pages section. The other important feature that we built into the crawl wizard is more related to new content detection. So previously, when we were crawling for a new site, we were clearly able to identify the new content, and with the availability of the contract index, it was possible in the content timeline as well, just to export and afterwards create a new work package with the new content. Starting from today as well, it is possible that as the crawler goes on, we can on the fly create a new work package to store the new content scanned actually by this crawl round. Because these crawls can take really for a while, we had the time finally to move over from the dashboard 1 a new notification system, so that even if you start a crawler, then in the top right corner of the screen, we will be able to just indicate you whenever a crawl is finished. So this way you do not have to all the time update the screen hoping for an end of the discovery. And not just crawl. We all know that for larger projects beyond the crawl, the pre-translate and the translation progress update and even the work package generation can really take for a while. So all these, well, at least as of today, these 4 operations are covered by the new notification system that you can see not just in the top right corner, but if you wish, it can be undocked, and you can constantly monitor what's going on with the project that you are actively using. So this is all going to take us, after the wizard, to the brand new pages user experience. It was really the most longest outstanding issue in our backlog, because from day one, as we moved beyond the first 100 or 200 pages project, we were heavily thinking on how this information could be all presented to you in a neat way. So while this infinite scroll down URL list seemed to be okay for the very beginning, and also just to look for a new site and trying to understand the structure and the excluding part of it, but definitely if you ever try to search for a given file in it, it was really, really painful. So these were our initial ideas that we had in mind, how we can cope with this a very difficult problem. So the challenge for us was not to build something which is suitable for maybe 1,000 pages or 2,000 pages, but because all the data suggested to us that a dozen, maybe 50,000 pages is also possible, especially with heavily polluted or overloaded resources view. So we had to come up with a brand new way which works on the data storage and can index the content in a variety of ways. And at the end of the day, let me just proudly present you this new pages list, which took us about 2 years or 2.5 years since the initial inception idea to get here. So the most notable thing, the feature of this pages list is that we can now group the pages by what we call a folder structure. Of course, there is no such thing as folder on the internet, but the URLs still can be grouped by the prefix or the slashes along the path, and that allowed us to group the pages at least here and make it similar to Explorer or the Finder or the Total Commander for some of you, if you wish, experience to bring it down and open just these folders as you want to navigate deeper. Another challenge that we have came across is that when you are to discover a site, you want to see where the content is coming from. And while for that purpose, the list of URL, this infinite list, was really useful or intuitive, with the introduction of these folders that apparently went away. Now, rest assured that the infinite scrolling version is still available, so you can always just switch to that. But we had better ideas as well. So here, right on the screen on the right-hand side, you can see our estimation, which can show that as I am watching or sitting in the top folder or the top level directory, the number of files from this level and down, how it is distributed approximately across the different folders here. So these numbers are just that in the home folder, about 57% of the total content is found, while in the CDN, CGI, it's about 3% only the content that is available. So that really helps us to see where to dig down and where to look for further content. The other important feature is what we call a smart grouping by the query parameter. So here by these SEO-friendly URLs are really easy to find and handle. But when we come to like these page ID type of query parameters, which can be very typical when it comes to like e-commerce, then we do see that it can heavily pollute this infinite list. So for this reason, we introduced this little toggle, which can be applied at the folder level. And with this, we can switch from the standard list view that we can see it here to this smart folder or smart grouping, which would bring all these query parameters URL together. And then we would be able to just open down those and drill into it as required. The other important feature with the new pages list is really the searching feature. So previously, we were able to search only on the client side, which really took a lot of time. So I do apologize to all of you for spending all those very expensive and hard minutes waiting for the search to finish, but not anymore. So basically, beyond the standard filtering option that was available on Dashboard 1 as well, to show only the excluded or the non-excluded pages, we have introduced three more very important filtering options that is available or can be hidden using this toggle. One is a simple one where you can search for an extension. The other one, where you can search for a MIME type, either just partial, like put in image, or you can also put in like image/PNG if you are interested, or if the exact MIME type or content type specification matters. And last but not least, and probably this is going to be used the most frequently, is this exact file name search filter field here. Now this is a pretty smart filtering possibility. So on one hand, you can just search for a full path prefix. So if you know that, you can just put in the prefix, and all of a sudden, in a second, you will see all the matching files coming in. The other possibility is just to filter for the file name, which is like the one terminating, so the last segment of the URL. And last but not least, you can just search for such as a prefix using the wildcard asterisk. So based on all the user feedbacks, and really thank you again for putting all this effort into answering our questions in multiple rounds, these are the indexing possibilities that we were able to implement across these huge data set. And also, what is very important, that unlike the previous Dashboard 1 concept, here we have this structures available and covering the pages and the resources, which are tabs up here. And we have introduced this hope to be more intensively used, this external links concept. So the new idea with this new crawling features will be to have a lot of content as a default in the pages section, have very few in the resources, only the ones that actually need your attention and that you want to translate. And the external links will just be as a pantry, as we call it. And that's where you will be able to identify every kind of everything else that doesn't really need your attention. But it's good to know that those are relevant or those appeared somewhere in the project. Beyond these capabilities, which were the result of very hard R&D work and a lot of concept work, we also did the footwork, the legwork as well. So for each and every page that's visible here, we introduced this context menu, where not just that you can see these previously mysterious different proxy modes, the preview and the original, but we also introduced quite a few new proxy modes which can help debugging what's going on with the proxy, the dictionaries and everything. And beyond that, there is still a shortcut to the translation workbench, whether it's in list view or in highlight view. So a few words on these new proxy modes. One very important aspect that we came across was the text expansion. So the X proxy was very helpful just to determine ahead of time with really no cost at all if the site is set up properly, if the content is valid and found on the website, but it did not help in estimating how fragile the layout is. Now we all know that if the source content is in English and the target language is in German, that a text expansion of like 150% can occur. And we also seen situations where the shrinking of the problem, like translating from English to some Asian target language, could cause issues as well. So this 80% and X80 and X130 proxy, what they can do is an expansion of the X proxy mode, where instead of the same number of X characters that were available for every source character, we can reduce or increase the number of X's and hence simulate with this pseudo text translation the text expansion problem as well. The dummy proxy is a good old friend. We just made it available through this contextual menu to see how would the original site look throughout the proxy. So this can be useful when we are not interested in the translation aspect yet, but it's very important to identify whether the proxy would work or whether some JavaScript or whatever is broken, and we just have to figure out that. Last but not least, there is the ABC proxy, which can help us figuring out the current status of the page, considering the dictionary as well. So that's hence the name, where instead of just the X's, we have introduced also A, B, and C, indicating the status of the content that we found on the website. So as you can see, we mark with X's all the source content that has not yet been extracted, but would be okay to extract. The letter A is when the content is extracted, but no translation is provided yet. The letter B is for those very rare situations where the source is extracted, the translation is available, but for whatever reason, it is actually the same as the source entry. And last but not least, the C is where the entry has been translated. So what's left is actually all the other content that's not yet been configured to be processed. So these are these new proxy modes. Hope it will help to save some nerves for all of us. The other important feature of this new pages concept is that for every page we can display all the information that is available in our database. So this is like a panel that's coming in from the right hand side, and besides showing the URL and making it available to open up in an external tab, We also show like when this page was created, what is the content type that we are aware of, and so on and so forth. And more importantly, we also display one by one the progress status for the different target languages. And you can also just update these target languages, any of it, if you require, just by clicking on it without changing the target language for the entire project. And also this is a great way to overview the status across different target languages. Again, and we have heard your requests, and the update of the target language progress bar, or the translation progress bar for multiple target languages, it could have been, or sometimes it was really a pain when it came to like 35 target languages. So based on this request, we created both a feature to run these requests in a parallel manner, so that you do not have to initiate these processes one by one, and you can just mark some or all of these target languages, and then as much as possible we try to update the progress bar for all the pages for all the selected target languages at once. The other feature that we made available here is to ease the translation process. So whenever you have the source image, now we can present all the translations in across the target languages in a single window. So you can select for which target language you would like to provide the translation, either as a form of an uploaded file that we host for you, or you can, as before, just copy paste the target URL, and we are going to use that if you wanted to host it outside of the proxy. And then when it all comes back to these resources, we have the possibility to show the images as a preview, and then here on the right hand side to have an overview on when the translation was uploaded and for which target language. So we hope that this will make it easier to handle the translation situations of resources for multiple files. And if you are here at the resources, let me just mention again that the filtering options or the search features are also available not just for the pages or HTML page content, but also for the resources as well. And here it also works that you can have this preview version, or you can switch to the list version or the directory hierarchy version as well of this unified pages list module. One thing that I would like to mention here, because it was a very simple introduction, and we have came across situations where it was very difficult to add multiple URLs. So previously it was possible to add these URLs throughout the crawler. So we were able to provide them, the crawler visited them, and it was all relatively easy if the URL was part of the whole scope, the whole project. Now we realize that as more and more resources are coming outside of the system, there was no easy way to add these URLs throughout the new interface, and especially this suggested change to use the crawler for the HTML content primarily. We believed and we experienced that this new multiple URL adding feature will be very, very useful. So the new point here is that once you can just copy paste all the URLs here, and as a result, we have two different strategies. So one possibility is that if the URL is pointing outside of the project domain, then without further ado, we just simply add it to the list of resources. However, for anything that is part of the domain of the current Easyling project, we do not edit automatically, as we do want to examine them in depth. So we separate them, and then we offer the option to edit through the crawler, which is the previous behavior. And we do hope that this will make the crawler faster and the update process faster as well, And with this unified interface, it will be easier to add the resources and JavaScript and JSON responses to the project. Which brings us to the reformed JSON JavaScript processing tool. So our initial idea with Easyling was that this is for HTML document translation. And of course, as the web evolved, and not just to mention these single page applications and Angular and React and so on, but also with the everyday application, we have seen a situation where some or more content is just not available in the HTML document. And while the initial approach was that in the HTML, we translate everything and we expect you to mark the things you do not want to translate, we had to take a different approach with the JSON and JavaScript processing. The idea here was that we, as a default, we do not translate everything, but you are to mark the sections of the response that you want to be translated. And the reason for that is that if these JavaScript files or JSON responses are touched in a wrong position, I mean, got translated, sometimes it can break the functionality of the website, which then becomes, on one hand, very expensive because those content should not have been part of the word count, but also it becomes very difficult to track it down and figure out why the site's functionality is broken. And that's really not on the translators, we believe. So that's why we provided this previous processing tool. But the challenge there was that with the JavaScript minifier, we have quite frequently seen JavaScripts and JSON responses, which were minified into a single line of code. And that was really difficult. That made it really difficult to process these files. So what we did here, and part of it was available as well, the dashboard one as well, is that you can just edit these JSON path configurations here. And also you can either just copy paste the content to be analyzed or provide the URL from which we can fetch the content to you. And then you can click and mark the sections to be translated with ease. And not just that, but we also provided a format code option, which reformat the original code. So it's no longer a single line JavaScript or JSON, but it eventually will contain as much white spaces and so on as possible for the human eye. We found it very useful and hope you will like it as well. In the future, we will adjust it further based on the feedback we have already received. Yeah, and then this is after the code formatting or prettification, we can run the code analyzation. And these are the ones where you can click and add the content from it to the configuration that the parser uses. Let's move on a little bit beyond the actual configuration of the project, and let's say that we have already ingested the content, and now it's time to create the output. So here, then the CSV or Xlave or JavaScript or HTML version of the export is created. We can not just download it directly, or we even have the possibility of multiple file downloads at the same time. But let me get this attention this moment to say that in some browser, when you first time you try to download multiple files, you will be warned with a very, very subtle hint in the address bar saying that this page is about to download multiple files and please enable them. So please enable them, and that will allow you to use this wonderful new feature. However, if you are more integrated and using XTM, XTRF, or Dropbox at the moment, then you can still take these files and transfer them directly to these external systems and for further processing. And then we will be able to import it back from these systems as well. Now, when you have a look at the file format, the XLIF file is very familiar to all of you. The CSV is something really for an archiving option. The JavaScript is something that Zalan is going to introduce you after my presentation about the client-side translation possibility of Easyling. And here, the other feature that we wanted to show is that for every segment here or every export, you can also access further information from a panel if just you click on the exported item. And beyond this XLIF, CSV, and JavaScript, I wanted to introduce you the HTML export as well, which might sound interesting for the first round, but we have learned it from a client who cannot be here today with us. But he basically went along the line, as we have already heard, that for some people, it can be a frightening option to use Easyling and or use a translation proxy as a hosting feature. And while for these, the client-side translation is also possible and available, some of them were really insisting on a copy-paste solution. Now, we, of course, don't do copy-paste, and I bet you are all trying to avoid that. But basically what this feature does is that when you select this export format, we actually create an HTML table so that it is better suited for character encoding and so on. And in this HTML table format, we have a tabular representation, much like the double column RTF in the good old times. And that's where all the source content and all the target content is listed. And this way, the client, if they wish so, can just copy paste the content as they wish. So from now on, you can not just only use Easyling for translation and in-context translation and context extraction and word count, but it is also a possible solution now to just hand it back to the client in a file format that is suitable for them as well for further processing. So this was about the content export, and we also offer a possibility to download the actual list of URLs. And when URLs, I mean the pages or resources or even the external links. And here, even in 2020, we can got surprised where our standard export to Excel was not good enough. We learned about projects where there were way too many files URLs to be exported, and Excel certainly wasn't able to open up the resulted file. So here is a new feature for all of these situations that the export of the URLs are now available in a CSV format as well. Or if you wish and you still not just want to tick the box and provide the URLs, but we offer also like new improved filtering options and possibilities of the URLs that you want to or need to export, not just by the status and the exclusion state, but you can also provide a search expression, which part may or may not to be included in the export. So let's say that everything is done and the content is exported, and we are ready to do the publishing. And when it comes to the publishing, we have heard a lot of feedback. So based on that, first we just created this access control and proxy modes for the dashboard 2.0 as well. So there you might not see any new features. It's just great to have this good old friend here available as well. But what is more important, these two new features for the global settings. The two items that we hear a lot about is bots. Now, when we talk about bots, it's not easy to say whether a bot is good or bad, but they definitely require our attention. So one common request or topic that we've been discussing with you is about the traffic caused by these bots. And when you have to come back or go back to the client and explain them that why 1 month bill is higher than expected, then usually this is about these robots which are not visible to the Google Analytics or alike client-side analytics solution of the client. So basically, because of that, we introduced two features to address the traffic caused by the bots. These are all opt-in, so while they are available, you would consciously have to enable them on the project of your choice. So one type of bots are the good bots, the regular and legal crawler, where people, owner of the website, they are very happy that these bots are coming. And this is the one that takes them further up in the SEO ranking and so on. But these are also the ones that are causing them more cost, possibly. So because of that, we had to find a solution which does not block these robots, these good bots, but still try to keep the cost in a manageable and explainable way. So because of that, we introduced this stale content for good bots concept. The idea here is that if the client is not willing to pay the actual money required to translate these pages and making sure that robots get the most up-to-date content, then we offer the possibility to serve a possibly outdated, so stale content, but free of charge or at a relatively very low cost. The reason of that is that the page got translated and stored in Easyling. And even if they are expired, so normally we would not reuse them, but we would fetch a fresh content from the original server, going through the translation, apply the most recent translation, dictionary and everything. But if they do not wish or cannot afford to pay for this fresh translation, then they have this option to tick and configure that maybe any kind of these pages that are otherwise cacheable, that just make them available up to a month. And this way, the good bots will see this translated but very cheaply accessible content on the longer run. Should you spot any robot of your choice that you consider good, just let us know and then we can add it certainly to the list. But what is important is not all bots are good. So there are definitely some bad bots for which we do not want to serve anything, not even as stale content, and we do not want to bear the cost of that. So for that reason, we also offer a possibility of blocking bad bots. Now this is again an opt-in, and while we offer a predefined set of robot user agent, you do have the possibility for your own projects to add more. And based on this user agent, we can block the request and just return a 403 forbidden response, further reducing the cost of the client. Another other new habitant of the Easyling Dashboard 2.0 is the path prefix overrides. So this was a little bit surprisingly to me, one of the most requested feature in the past, the last masterclass, saying that this is the one where the most configuration can happen, and this was one of the least usable in our old user interface and dashboard. So we listened to the requests, and this is the new path prefix override functionality, where as a default, it does not introduce too much seemingly in terms of functionality, but we hope that the UX has improved a lot. So you can search for the existing different path, and here on the right in the middle, you can see the different features that are available. And then on the right-hand side, you can map in this master slave view the different configuration parameter. And with this new UI language, it is possible that we have finally space and flexible layout. So we hope that it will make it much easier to provide all these cockpit pilot license configuration settings for each and every path or path prefix. We have also moved over the third-party integrations. So these are on one hand the machine translation related credentials and features, and the other ones are related to the external translation management systems such as XTM and XTRF to start with, and also the Dropbox feature, which is our universal Swiss knife solution to go across different firewalls and provide a folder which can be a good candidate for hot folder and monitoring. And so you can configure the local systems such as MemoQ to pick up the content, and after the translation, just to deliver there the translatable. But there, the other three, the machine translation credentials, are something that I wanted to introduce to you, or at least spend a little time on that. Early on, we had a very simple concept of account level machine translation credentials. So you logged in, and the person who is logged in, that machine translation credential was used all around the project while it was operational. But since then, we had to move on, and not just the user-facing actions happened, such as a manual pre-translation on the Workbench, or manually triggered pre-translation on the dashboard. But we also introduced background operations, which brought us the question: in this situation, which machine translation key should be used? And in this way, we learned from you that while the account level keys are very good when you are setting up new projects, and then you are only doing a demo, and to translate maybe a single landing page as an icebreaker, but for accountability and long-running operation and the auto pre-translate feature, it is not suitable anymore. So basically, for this reason, we had to introduce, and besides the account level, a project level key concept. And so for all these empty engines, now when you create a new project, we do copy across from your account these empty keys for the newly created project. So seemingly it works very well, and there is nothing to do for the new projects. However, for other projects, if there was no empty key saved, you must log in, and you have to explicitly configure which empty credential should be used for that. And the deadline for that is just being passed in the 1st of June. So please have a look around that. Talking of third-party integrations, it's not just us going out and integrating with other systems out there, but we have also introduced an API approach for some of the functionalities within Easyling. What we have heard in the last masterclass, 3 areas were mentioned. One is the list of pages. The other one is the contract indices, so that it's possible to identify which round or how many different timestamps were used when content is ingested. And last but not least, the audit log. So these are all available with an authorization token. If you are interested in developing your own integration, either to these API endpoints from Easyling, or you are interested in further integration endpoints, please let us know, and then we can offer you the extra information that's required. So that's basically how far we got with the Workbench in this past year. And to move further on, not just work was done on the dashboard, but there were some requests related to the translation Workbench as well. One feature that was requested was about the workflow row checking. Now, if I may recall quickly, so in Easyling we do have a flexible workflow where you can define the number of workflow steps, and the segments travel through these workflow steps. And then each and every steps, they have to be like confirmed in order to reach their end final status for rest. Now, based on some feedbacks, it was requested that we shouldn't be that strict, but if someone like a proofreader later on in the workflow stage decides that a segment that hasn't been proofread, but the in-count reviewer might decide to want to approve it, then they can decide so. So they do not, and if they have access to it, previously they would have needed to switch back to that given workflow mode, carry out the changes there, and then switch it back to the later stage workflow. So now if this Lenient workflow row checking is enabled, this new feature, then there is no need for this back and forth switching. However, it's very important that you still have to configure and then have access for all the relevant workflow steps. So this is one. The other one that we were requested is a new button on the Workbench to open a preview in a dummy mode of the original site. So that can help to identify the source content of the original site, because in context, it could be difficult with us if there is already translation to spot the source content for the site. Another feature that we have heard is missing is to be able to filter for certain segments depending based on when the last modification to the translation happened. So you ask for it, and here it is. It's again in the filtering section. So just below the before mentioned Lenient workflow row. Now it's possible to filter for these segments based on the modification date as well. Okay, so these are the ones that we made it, and we were able to deploy it. Not to mention a lot of bug fixes and performance improvements and little improvement requests here and there. But there are a few features that I would like to mention because they are almost made it. It was almost possible to introduce them. And some of them, to be very honest, were requested about a year ago, some even longer. So I want to make you assured that those are not forgotten and we are still working on it. So this is how much fit and how the priorities made us scheduling this extremely long backlog. So not on the backlog, but almost in the finish line is a search and replace in the removed cache, which is almost done. There was one feature requested to have a different redirect strategy for excluded pages. So this is also delivered by the backend team. So we just get to build a user interface for that. The third one, which we've been requested, is whenever a project is published in a subdirectory mode, then as a default, we don't do any further action. Without further ado, if this reverse proxy or content delivery network is properly configured, we deliver those pages. Now, it turned out that in certain situations and configurations, this can yield to problems and trouble, and that these subfolders should be excluded manually for the crawl engine. And based on this request, we started the process where from now on, you will be able to register the subdirectory publishing path prefix. And hence, whenever it is provided for a certain target language, we will be able to exclude automatically these subdirectories based on the information you provided. So we still not be able to verify them, but whatever information you provide, we will be able to respect and don't crawl those most likely foreign language content to pollute the database. The other feature that is really, really long pending is to delete the pages. This is where for whatever reason always got the least priority. One of the reasons I must admit is Zalan, because you can always just drop a line to the great support team and then they kill all these pages for you. but I promise that by next year we will deliver this missing feature as well. And last but not least, this is the cloud analyzer. So we are going to give a demonstration on that tomorrow and talk more about it. But what I want to talk just briefly about that is the down of these headless browsers. So what we spotted is that a lot of time is spent in configuring the proxy and getting there, making sure that the content is extracted, the JavaScript is configured, text expansion, and so on and so forth. And most of it is done by clicking back and forth in the browser, checking the translated page. So what we would like to do with this cloud analyzer possibility is to operate a bunch of headless crawlers. And even if it will come at a cost, but we want to be able and provide you with a system that checks the proxy page for you, either before the actual translation, making sure that everything is ingested, and hopefully after that as well, checking if the translations are there and that they did not break any kind of page. So this is really not so soon coming section, but we are working on that for sure. And last but not least, this is an absolutely like R&D area of our office here, is how to provide the context for resource files, whether they are mobile or content connector related files, and so that we can provide screenshots into your XLIF, or what we have an existing integration with KTablet is that the XML files they extracted can be annotated with a preview URL. So this is yet to be seen how can be standardized and make it into a product production feature. But I would definitely wanted to share this with you, and I would be very happy to hear your feedbacks on that, if there is any, and what you see out there on the market. So basically, this was our year in terms of the dashboard tool and the Workbench and development.